the planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet
Earth.
A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet stupid.
No. It's the planet stupid.
Our guide for It's the Planet Stupid is eco-journalist Belinda Waymouth. Hi, Belinda.
Hi there. How are you?
Belinda,
can you hear me?
You have... I hear you, darling. I hear you.
Good. All right. Fantastic.
You are heard.
All right. I hear you too.
Now, sometimes we have good news, sometimes we have bad news, sometimes we have a mixture of both. What do you have today?
Well, today is definitely a mixture. So we're going to sort of go backwards and forwards from some bad to some good. How about that?
Cool.
Okay. So there was a pretty terrifying report out this week about plastics being found in the testicles of 23 men aged from 16 to 88 and in 50 dogs. 3 times the amount of plastic in the men than the dogs, but dogs are very close to us in the environment, obviously, man's best friend and women's best friend.
Let me just mention, because I know you're going to talk about the proliferation of plastics in the environment, but just on the testicle inspection thing, these were cadavers of men, and these were dogs that had been neutered, so they were able to inspect the testes. So that's what was going on. That's how they know this information. Please continue.
Yeah. And the horrifying thing in the men was, when they got, took out all the flesh and they were just looking at what was left behind, once you got past the human factor, 75% of what was left was plastic. And an earlier, smaller Chinese study that came out last year found that plastic was in the semen as well as in the flesh of testicles. So, this, once again, the fossil fuel industry, poisoning us with impunity. This is polyethylene, this is PVC. These are related, they're carcinogens. They're related to lower sperm count, infertility. This study came out in the Toxicological Studies Journal. They'll be obviously looking at it way more closely as it relates to human health and reproductive health. But we already know it's having a detrimental effect. The one finding that was sort of good is that there's less plastic in placentas than there are in testes, and the testes amount of plastic is second to the brain, which that isn't good. I mean, the horrible thing is that, we're ingesting, they say, about a credit card's worth of plastic. I mean, it's a week, which just seems crazy, but it's in the water we drink. It's in the air that we breathe. There are plastic fibers. They say when you do a beach cleanup and you're sort of horrified by all the actual plastic that you can see, there's even more of the plastic nanofibers that you can't see, carpeting the beach.
Go back to the credit card thing, because I remember that stat, but did you say we ingest a credit card a week?
Yeah, I always go back and look at it again because I can't believe that's how much it is. And obviously, it's not going to be, every week and every person. But
you're saying on average over the course of the week.
Yeah. It's in our honey. It's in the beer that we drink. It's in the water that comes out of the tap. They did a study all around the world. I mean, it's coming out of the taps on Capitol Hill in DC. I mean, it's so ubiquitous. And this is the thing that, we have known for so long about plastic. It doesn't biodegrade. It just breaks into these smaller and smaller bits. And they say the bits that they found in the testes, they're sort of little shards. And what damage could those do also, on a cellular level? So, we really, this has to be a wake-up call for policymakers because everyone gets, and I beat this drum often on the show, but to say that it's up to consumers, it's up to us to recycle. It's like, no, it's up to policymakers to curb plastic production and to really make it a circular manufacturing model, that you really are creating plastics that are 100% recyclable. That they're not just going to be, because what they do with plastic is, it's hard to recycle it into another item of equal value. It gets downsided into kind of a crappier plastic item. My daughter's just come home from Ireland, and in Ireland, every single plastic bottle that has Coke or a drink in it has to be made from 100% recycled plastic. And that's what we need here. But we also need, better, more recyclable plastics, and we need to be turning off the tap. We can't be producing plastics at the level that we are right now, because the environment is just flooded and sort of drowning in them. And the good news story, and I sent Tony just before I got on, so I don't know if he's had time to grab it, but there's a company that they're called Sungay Design, and they are doing this it's a great business model. It's upstream, because the other thing is lots of plastics in places where there aren't really good. Yeah, so so they're going to Bali, they're going to rivers, because all the garbage is being thrown in rivers, and they're sorting through plastics, they're dividing it up into the colors, and they're turning what's the equivalent of 2,000 plastic bags into these chairs. So first of all, they make it into this, they divide it up into the colors, they make it into sheets, and then the sheets they turn into these chairs. And the thing that's really great about this is, everyone got very excited. There they are. Everyone got really excited with that young guy, Slat. He was out of Denmark, and he was going to go into the ocean with these great big ships and these arms that were basically plastic and gather up all the plastic. But what these guys are doing is way, way more efficient, because they're upstream before the plastic gets into the ocean. Because once it gets into the ocean, that's too big a body of water. But if you can grab it in the rivers, because people in countries where there isn't a really robust and sort of structured, municipal waste system, they're tossing their garbage, into waterways, and those waterways, of course, make their way to the ocean, and then we have an ocean plastic pollution crisis. But these chairs, if we can scale this up, this plastic waste. And
they're selling those chairs now.
Yeah. So this is what we need. We need innovation, and I've got a couple of innovation stories today, which I think are good news, and this is one of them. And I worked in plastic ocean pollution for a long time. I mean, I really know the problem, and that this idea of waste in the ocean, we just can't do it. We have to stop getting in the ocean, but we also really need to force it down on production. We can't be making as much as we are and expecting the natural world to be able to, absorb it. It just can't.
I mean, that idea also of catching it upstream is such an important one. That's a really key distinction.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the good news stories. There are a lot of crazy stories this week about heat. And I don't want to sort of belabor them too much, but I think it's really important when we're in an election year to really be aware of what's happening in the world. So, last week we had those huge storms in Houston, very destructive. 4, I think more people died. The flooding and the damage. I don't know if you saw the photos of the buildings. I mean, they had 100-mile-an-hour winds coming off the Gulf of Mexico. And that's, hotter air temperatures, hotter ocean temperatures. And, we have the La Nina now. We had the El Nino, which was sort of masking how hot the planet's got. Then we've got Miami, the heat index, they're saying it is 115 degrees. It's insane. And this is May. This is before the 4 hottest months. We've just had their governor, Mr. DeSantis, strike climate change off energy policy. Don't say climate change in Florida.
And that's what the last presidential administration did. The last administration, the Trump administration, did the same thing. They dry cleaned it from every government website.
Yeah. And the fact is, the temperatures they're getting in Florida right now, the temperatures are in the high 90s, and then when you add in the humidity factor, that makes the heat index go up to 115. This is 11 to 17 degrees hotter than records. This is really, really hot. Right down from Houston, where you've had these terrible storms, directly south in the Gulf of Mexico, you've got the state of Tabasco in Mexico. And this story is so sad. It just really breaks my heart. So mantled howler monkeys are dying in the heat, and they have collected 83 corpses of these monkeys, and they've basically just fallen out of the trees dead. And that's from heat. So here's a worker getting them. They're putting out buckets of water for them. They're putting out food, but they're just too hot. They're going in with lime and basically just putting it on the corpses. So I bring this up. These aren't happy stories, but I bring them up because it's an election year, and it's really important who you vote for. And I'm just going to give a little plug for President Biden, because last week he said no more leases in it's called the Powder River Basin, and it's Wyoming and Montana. It's the biggest coal deposit that we have in the US. And he said no more mining leases, which is a huge step to combat climate change, because that's a lot of emissions in the ground, potential emissions in the ground there. And it doesn't mean that the coal mining will stop overnight. That's not what happens. There are leases that are ongoing, and they say that in Wyoming, the mining won't stop till 2041. But it's really important, listeners, that that you vote for the climate this November.
I mean, it's a crisis to the point that I think it's a national security issue. It's a world security issue. It's there are no words to discuss properly the irresponsibility associated with ignoring it is one thing, but like to literally erase it from government websites and to steer the other direction out of some sort of sense of political expediency. It's outrageous. I mean, it really is grotesque. I mean, we're talking about an existential threat to the future, to our future generations.
Yeah. Well, it's outrageous and it's dumb. I mean, that's the thing to me. It's just plain stupid. That's what sort of I find so galling about it, because smart people, in the interests of their, political longevity, supposedly, ignoring, as you said, say this big existential threat. So should we get on to a good news
sorry
story?
about that. Anyway, I always chime in with the it's just so, to me, it's so egregious. So please continue.
No, but you're right, Mark. And it's really, it's really true. And it should be blasted all over the media right now. I know we have all these other things that are happening in the world that are really huge, but this is really huge too. And these intense temperatures that are being felt, here in the continental US, in Mexico, in, Asia, the crazy heat that they're going through in India and other parts of Asia, and as I was saying last week, without air conditioning, without, respite. I mean, it's crazy. So the good news,
die-offs. Yeah. So give me some good news.
Yeah. Okay. So the good news. So one of the things that is happening is, we've talked before about the fashion industry. Now that everyone, we like lovely clothes. We want to look hip and cool. I get it. And I'm not saying, no, don't say fashion. I'm saying say climate change and say fashion, but let's do fashion in a more responsible way. And so there are so many different companies that are really looking at fast fashion and how just incredibly destructive it is, for the planet. Growing cotton, tons of pesticides, tons of water. So how can we augment cotton? How can we put in bio, fibers and make cotton go further? How can we lessen the impact of, dyes on, with water pollution? The crazy thing about fast fashion, so in 2015, I think it is, the world bought twice as much fast fashion as they did in 2000. So the sales of clothes is going nuts. But the problem with fast fashion is it's really cheaply made, and it's really it ends up in landfills. So, it falls apart. It ends up in a landfill. It doesn't biodegrade. It's got, polyester is plastic. There's so much stuff in it that isn't good. So there's this young guy, his name is Arav Chavda, and he is a very keen diver, and he's also an analyst and a mechanical engineer. So he was diving in Florida year after year. He was seeing the horrible impacts of coral bleaching, and he was also seeing lionfish. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen lionfish, but they're really cool looking. They have these spines on the top. They're very stripy, but they're an incredibly terrible invasive species, and they're sort of everywhere. And he is taking, there they are. And I've seen them swimming around in an aquarium, and they're kind of, it looks a bit scary there, but they're kind of
Well, they
cool
look exotic, which is kind of cool, but
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
saying they're
Oh,
wildly invasive. Yeah.
Yeah, they're terribly invasive. So he and two other entrepreneurial types have been taking not only lionfish, we've also got this problem with Burmese pythons that have been, people go, oh, I want to have a Burmese python, what a cool snake, and then it gets absolutely enormous. And where do they release them? Into the Everglades in Florida. So there's this huge Burmese python invasive species problem going on there. We've got carp in the Mississippi. Well, this company, they're called Inversa, they have so far taken out, I think it's about 10,000 of these animals. And they've turned their leather, they've turned their skin into this supple and attractive leather, and it's being used by companies to make shoes and wallets and all these different things. And he said, okay, so far it's 10,000 of them, but we want to be taking out, 50,000. We want to be taking these invasive species out of the environment by the tens of millions and turning them into what is going to be a biodegradable leather, because it comes from which other leather is too, but the other leather is hugely problematic for cows and for the environment, because of all the the water and blah blah we've already talked
Chemicals
about
and
cows.
dyes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the thing, they're like a lot of startups in this industry, they need money to be able to scale up, and it's a fledgling industry, but it's really important. And there's a whole shift happening and an awareness about fashion and what it's doing. A lot of people are shopping in thrift stores and consignment stores. They're realizing if I buy better quality things and fewer of those things, they will last longer. They won't end up in a landfill. But also, go for these alternative fabrics that are kind to the planet and don't have such a huge carbon footprint. The fashion industry is bigger than what the airline industry is putting into the atmosphere as far as emissions go. So you can love your fashion. You don't have to, wear the same thing, for, the next 5 years, but really be responsible and think about it, and support these alternative fabrics, because these, they're going, they can make a difference. And you as the consumer, because as we, spending money is a political act, corporations and governments see what people spend their money on. So I would encourage our listeners to, if they find these fabrics, clothes that are made from them and they like them, really think about buying those as opposed to the alternatives.
Yeah, that's such a point. And the notion of making it somehow possible to address the invasive species problem by an economic inducement. It's more than just trying to clean up the environment. There's actual money in it in this case. Honestly, that speaks to, the society in which we live, so.
Yeah. Well, there's a woman who's making this fabric that also comes out like pleather or leather from shrimp shells, and it's got, there's chitlin in it, and she makes that into this pleather. So, it's yeah, I mean, it's, and it would be waste, but we do have to get smarter. I mean, as we started at the top of the show, we were talking about plastic waste. If we get smarter about waste that's actually, biodegradable, or like as you brought it full circle, we're taking an invasive species out of the environment. So we're helping the planet and creating a biodegradable fabric which helps the planet. So it's a win and a win. You got to love a win and a win.
I mean, I just love. I think underpinning a lot of what you're talking about today is sustainability, and you're just trying to live sustainably. So you're right. If you can use every bit in the process or whatever, it makes a huge difference. But those are really innovative, wild ways in which they're making it work. And Tony's showing some of the stuff that is sustainably produced, and that's the quote leather that they're making. Yeah, I love our visits, and really cool that you could be here, Belinda. You can follow Belinda on social media, Belinda Waymouth, Waymouth. And of course, if you have anything specifically you want me to integrate into our conversations, just send us an email to the show, and I will make sure that Belinda gets that email. Love your visits here. Belinda Waymouth, everybody.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
That's It's the Planet Stupid for today.
More
It's the planet stupid. No, it's the planet stupid.
next time, only on The Mark Thompson Show.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.